Hello there and welcome to Shuttlebay 4. This time we're not talking about tomorrow's Enterprise, or last year's Enterprise, or even the Enterprise from a couple of weeks ago. We're talking about yesterday's Enterprise.
So, Season 3, Episode 15, pretty much bang on halfway through TNG. So the Enterprise C, which was meant to be destroyed a couple of decades ago, emerges from a temporal anomaly, not a nebula, so maybe it's not always the nebula, and that changes the timeline. In this timeline, the Federation's at war with the Klingons, the crew of the D is different as a result, so you've got crew that aren't there and crew that are there, but Guinan's all tingly inside, because she can sense that something's not quite right. And so she tries to convince Picard that the right thing to do is send the sea back in time, even though it's going to get destroyed, to restore the timeline. And that is yesterday's Enterprise. Kind of.
What can I say about this episode? It's bloody brilliant. It's got everything in it, and it's just the nut. It really is. The first time I saw it, I wasn't very old, right? And I thought, oh, the Enterprise C. And you saw the back of Shooter McGavin's head, and I'm thinking, is that Kirk? Because it's kind of got the curls going on at the back. I'm thinking, is that Kirk? And no, Shooter McGavin. So there we go. But yeah, that was the first thing I remember. It was a shame that the captain died. I think Kate Garrett.
Yeah, Garrett.
Yeah,
Rachel Garrett. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a shame that she died, I thought. Attack Pattern Sierra. Why did we never see this again?
Dispersal pattern, Sierra. And fire.
Absolutely bang on. And then I kind of figured the reason we never saw it again is because the alternative timeline wasn't really a war, so it probably just wasn't necessary. It was clearly a pattern that was bred for war, and you never saw it again. But it was such a shame. It was such a cool look. When you saw the Enterprise D defending the Enterprise C, I don't think it did a very good job of it. It should have been absolute relentless, and it wasn't. It kind of picked its targets carefully and slowly. So considering the Enterprise D was now a warship, it should have projected that, I think.
I was just going to say, do you know that scene you're on about where you see the D and the C? I know somebody else is going to say this. So I'm going to be the first to say it in terms of interesting fact about this episode. That was the only time that two Starship Enterprises were on the screen at the same time. Up until Picard Season 3, even throughout the films, there'd never been two Starship Enterprises on screen at the same time.
Obviously, Guinan got a bit of a tingling. Now,
drink your prune juice.
I don't understand where this
I know where this
came from.
So the reason that it's written in a book somewhere, one book, and they've come up with a theory that because she was in the Nexus, that's the part of her is still in the Nexus, and that's why she gets these senses apparently for timelines and alternates.
Okay.
Bullshit.
Guinan's people have, if she can if she can stand off Q with this, that kind of thing. Yeah. So, if they've got the ability to at least do battle with a Q, they're going to have some heavy power.
It's a shame that was never explored, especially the standoff with Q. They never really looked at it. But that's a different episode. We ain't getting into that. And it was. I'll tell you what. It was pure genius to bring back Tasha Yar in that episode. Absolute genius, and it was so well done. I'll be honest, I never really rated Tasha Yar as a security officer, but it was good to see her. It was genius bringing her back. Very, very, very good episode. Whoever's choice this was, brilliant. Right, there you go. Okay, I feel on to see whose choice it was. I wish I hadn't said it now.
I don't need you to want anything. Just keep congratulating me, Chris. It's good.
JP, I love you, man, all day long.
Sweet. No, I'm glad you like this one. I am glad you like this one. I mean, looking back on it, it is a good episode. It is a long time since I've watched yesterday's Enterprise. And listening to your take on it, I don't think I even got all of those things myself. There's a lot packed in there. Like other episodes we've spoken about, this probably could have been movie-worthy stuff. But they went to the time thing with the Borg instead of this. I was happy that this wasn't the alternate timeline. It wasn't the ultimate dimension, like the alternate reality where everyone's evil and all of that shit. It wasn't one of those. It was another take on that, and I quite enjoyed that.
Good luck.
And hello, Rashid. Hello.
Rashid, how you doing?
You all right? Everyone all right?
Sound. I think there's a great teaser before the credits. I love the Guinan and Worf thing. Basically, she's saying that, you know, there may be some women on this ship that like it a bit rough, Worf. You might enjoy that. And he just burst out laughing. And this is the introduction of prune juice, a warrior's drink, you know. I thought that was it had nothing to do with the episode. It was just a bit of fluff to start it off with.
Prune juice.
Warrior's drink.
And then Tasha Yar, you know, in the teaser. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. After the credits, we get this alternate universe. And it's clear that it's not nearly the same as our universe. The officers don't get on. You can see that there's a clear thing going on between Picard and Riker. Yeah. They're not getting on. They're just not getting on. And I know it's a small detail, but it does stick out, is sound effects of the doors, a very original series.
Dr. Solar.
And you know, it's not just a bit of a changing costume with the belt thing going on. It's everything's different. The people are different. The sound effects are different. There's different technology. And using that different sound effects for the doors is a nice segue into saying that there might be slightly different technologies here. We saw Captain Rachel Garrett of the Enterprise C. The Enterprise C, I mean, for me, it's interesting that they kind of bridge the gap and it takes us from the Excelsior class to the Galaxy class. But the Enterprise C just looks like if you ordered a Galaxy class starship off of Wish, the C's the one you get. Do you know what I mean? It's almost.
I love
disagree with you.
I love it.
Yeah, I know you do, but it's if I had the choice, I'd have a B or a D. I wouldn't have a C. I just don't.
The B doesn't fit in the Enterprise.
I just don't like it. I just don't.
I think
I
the
love it.
ambassador class is wicked. Is that the thing?
Yeah. And it's a total progression. You can see the progression.
You can see the progression.
The B takes that away, though. That's why I don't like the B at all. It doesn't feel like an Enterprise.
It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit into that flow. It's got that big hulky central piece with the ribs on it and the fins and all of that lot. And the deflector sunk right back in. But I do like the Excelsior class, and I do like the Galaxy class.
I love the Excelsior as a ship, but not as an Enterprise. That's what my point is.
So we see Rachel Garrett in command. Rachel Garrett, to me, from the get-go, has a very Sigourney Weaver vibe. I know people might disagree with that and say she's a character in her own right and an actress in her own right, but she does have that very Sigourney Weaver vibe, you know, that hard-faced, cast-iron space woman, you know?
Get away from her, you bitch!
Picard comes through in this episode as still the diplomat. He's still trying to avert 22 years of war, and he's making hard decisions to do that. But he does look gaunt and tired in this episode. You can tell the makeup it's kind of sunk his cheeks in a bit, you know, sunk his eyes in a bit. It's not like evil Picard, it's strung out Picard, and he's really jumpy. He's quick to shout and bang and no. And you can tell that the strain is breaking him. And we find out later on in the episode, the war's going badly. The dark lighting also lends to that ominous, you know, it's very, very dark, and it's almost like a brilliant spotlight on the characters, illuminating just the character, but the backdrop's very dark, and it's that kind of it's rigged for combat. It's very dark, and and everyone's looking strung out. The uniforms are slightly different as well. I did notice that the collars on the uniforms are slightly different. It's more like a clergy collar. It doesn't dip in, and that kind of it's like tight neck kind of thing does add to the stress of it. You know, there isn't any kind of embellishment. We're at war here. I do like the bridge of the Enterprise C. It does have the LCARs from the movies, you know, the roundel type things and the stuff that you see in the back of the Enterprise, well, A and B. It has that LCARs vibe. So the ship definitely, like I was saying, it has 1 foot in the past and it has 1 foot in the future. What does get to me, though, is the monster maroon with no polar neck. It just doesn't look right. It looks cheap to me. It
didn't look right at all. No, I didn't like that.
No, it looks cheap. They're trying to use these monster maroons, use some of the costume department. How are we going to make them different for no money? We'll knock out the white bit, and we'll try and take it to like a season 1 onesie type thing. Coming on to Tasha Yar, this is the Tasha Yar episode. This is her episode. I do think, and it was mentioned in the episode, that she had a death without purpose. She was just written out for a senseless death. And I think this death in Star Trek was a noble death, and it gave her an exit from the series and a death with a bit of purpose. So it corrected that, I think. And I think she deserved it. Archer 4.
Do you mean she deserved to have a decent death, or she deserved to die?
No, she deserved, I mean, she was out. She deserved a decent send-off.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
I think that parallels as well how Denise Crosby felt after being written out, because she chose to be written out. But I feel later on she thought, oh, not just because it was being successful, because she actually she was interested in going back to it. So I think it kind of parallels that. It's almost like they're writing what she felt as well.
Archer 4 was mentioned, the planet Archer 4.
I shouldn't be so confident after the pasting we gave them on Archer 4.
Yeah.
So something to do with Jonathan Archer, almost like the Cook Islands for Captain Cook.
I just looked into that because I didn't know what Archer 4 was, but apparently in the Enterprise episode Mirror Darkly, there is a planet Archer 4.
Mr. Crusher, laying a course for Archer 4.
And so that's what's mentioned. Yeah.
The battle scenes are all right. As Chris said, the Enterprise, when it's taken on the Klingon ships, is a bit hesitant and a bit weak. Like Deep Space Nine battles are, they're full on and full of action and full of energy weapon discharges and torpedoes and shit. This looked like the Enterprise was needlessly taking a kicking. And there was one thing I noticed when either ship took a decent hit and everyone was flying over and dying, actually, there was rubble all over the deck. And you'll notice this, when the ships take a decent hit and things explode and people land on the deck, all this rubble lands on the floor. And it's like bits of rock. And I was looking at it like, where's that coming from? Where's all this rock? It's not cables and bits of bulkhead and shrapnel and metal. It's rock. And it looks like, to me, someone stood behind the camera with a bucket full of, like, painted sponge, just gone, whoo, every time there's a hit. Like, right, okay, that's debris. That looks good. Great, let's move on. I don't know what that was about. And it did detract from the battle scenes for me. The battle scenes were quite weak. It's always nice to see Denise Crosby. It is always nice. I think she's a better actress than she was given credit for. And everyone pans Tasha Yar for being a bit cheesy and not very well acted. But Marina Sirtis, in the first season, the second season was shocking. And Riker without the beard and when he was young was shocking. And dare I say, thin, young, baby-faced Data with his smiling and all of that kind of stuff and his arrogance and shit, he was shocking in the first couple of seasons. I think Tasha Yar might have progressed into something better.
Yeah. I think as well, I think it's often the lines, because when I think of Denise Crosby as Tasha Yar, I think it's in Encounter at Farpoint where Hugh's on that chair rising up and she's like, no, that's what all humanity is about. Or she says something and it's really cheesy and it just comes across as really naff. But in this episode, her lines were much more, I suppose, more mature lines. And I agree. I think she was really good in this episode. This felt like the actress that she was, rather than an actress forced to maybe perform some shit role that she wasn't really buying into.
Yeah, I think the direction was quite weak in the first season. And I think the character suffered from that, but I think all the actors suffered from that, The characters weren't well established and it was all kind of starry-eyed, like, what are we going to do with this character? Having said that, the exit of Tasha Yar gave us Worf as the tactical officer and really stepped up into that and owned the show. There was a bit of a homage to Tasha Yar at the end. Ben Guinan says, talk to me about Tasha Yar, because they never actually met. And it's nice that they got the canon right that they never actually met.
Jordy, tell me about Tasha Yar.
It was a really good episode. It was really solid and I really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it. There are some little bits and pieces that stick out as not right, but I really liked the episode. And that's it.
I agree, though. Actually, it's a fantastic episode. And I did look out of curiosity. It's rated incredibly high on IMDb, which is actually quite rare. It's 9.6, which is...
I read 9.2 on IMDb.
Have I gone full...
Wait, is that out of 10?
Yeah.
9.2, yeah.
Yeah, so 9.5 out of 10. That's pretty damn good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, nothing gets that. Sorry, yes, Bruce, you're right. It's 9.2.
Well,
matter,
like
I reckon
best of
9.5.
both worlds only gets 9.3, so it's almost the top score you get for an episode.
Bruce, do
Yeah.
you know them all? You should go
No.
and you bet. All
No, I
right.
don't know them all.
The first scene, I always love the camera where it's set like that, looking out the window when they drop out of warp. Don't ask me why. It builds the immersion for me that they're in space and moving and things are happening all the time, even though the characters might not be on the bridge. That kind of adds that it's a real ship. I think that builds a lot of backstory. Someone's already probably mentioned this, but, prune juice, the drink of a warrior. Love that bit. Love that whole little interaction.
That whole little Guy and Wolf skit at the beginning is just brilliant.
Brilliant. I love it too.
Yes, it's fantastic. And it's a good way
And
of
the laugh,
introducing what's going to
that
happen.
lean back and laugh as well. That at conventions, I love it when they stand up and like Michael Dorn will be there and go, if you notice in episode 16 where it was commented that you never laugh, but going back to yesterday's Enterprise, you clearly before the credits made a barrel laugh. Do you have any comment on that? And you can see the bloke going, shall I tell you the story about when I fell over instead? Because you're shut up. So
Rush doesn't sound like that.
Guinan stands up and shouts, "No," a good 10 minutes before the entire universe changes.
No.
It would have been nice of her to radio the bridge. I suppose the big bugger all you could do about it. She just stands there and goes, "Oh, no." Anyway, I'll clean up these plates. I love the filmography, the transition between the past and the future. The two different timelines. I love the way that's done. I think that's done a lot better than it has in other episodes, especially DS9, where it's normally uses a transporter to beam in.
That little shimmer, was it?
Yeah, that little shimmer and the flicker of flicking between the two.
Did you notice though? Like I noticed, and it is effective, but they don't do it when it goes back the other way.
No, they don't.
Which is like, well, they should have really. They should have just had that little shimmer.
was it a deliberate error not to include the shimmer on the return to the normal unit?
Hello.
Hello. Speak to us. We missed your voice.
No, you don't want to hear me.
Oh my bloody God, it's not there, is it?
What you doing?
All right, mate.
Have we just shifted timeline? Is that what's just happened here?
Yeah, we shimmered.
Hey lads, I can't thank you enough for these slippers of glass.
Data smart in any universe. Just a random point I've wrote down there. I don't know why I've wrote that. In a war footing, it had 23 years to pick up more tactical information. If you want anybody sat perhaps at your tactical console, it'd be an android that has split. Yeah. It was really interesting to see Picard still bothered about the temporal sort of, I don't want to say prime directive because that doesn't come into it for another few series yet. But he's bothered about continuity, like time continuity, even though he's in the middle of a war. That was quite interesting to see. It mentions it before he even beams over, doesn't it? You know, don't say what ship we're from, etc. Yeah. And if you're in a war, would you care? You'd be like, get all the weapons you can, let's help.
Yeah. I think part of that though was just not to cause confusion, because there's that bit where he says to her, "This is Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Starship," and he goes to say Enterprise, and he kind of like stutters and stops himself and just goes, "From a Starship." And
Federation ship, yeah.
I think that was more just so it didn't cause confusion as well. Because you were like, hang on, you're the Enterprise, but I'm the Enterprise.
This is Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship.
Because Riker mentions it to her on the bridge over there, doesn't he? And she goes, "What?" Yeah. But she's almost like she's dazed, exactly, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, go away with that."
Is it Riker or is it?
No, it's Crusher.
Crusher says it when she's got the tricorder, hasn't she? Yeah. And she
we
says,
better get back to the Enterprise.
The Enterprise, yeah.
I'm gonna say,
where?
But this is clip to the episode now.
I'm gonna have to get her back to the Enterprise. To where?
Oh yes, she does. I really enjoyed the little subtle differences where it went full sort of military. For instance, battle alert, condition yellow, not yellow alert.
Sector.
Battle alert, Mr. Crusher. Condition yellow.
Aye, sir.
Like that's a subtle bit of story writing there that they didn't need to do, but looked fantastic. My nitpick is they said they got hit with a barrage of photons, or there was a fierce volley of photons and they were hit. The Romulans don't use photon torpedoes; they use plasma weapons, and this is where you all shout "geek" at me really loud.
Fierce volley of photon torpedoes. We were hit
So that was a little bit of a bugbear, but that's because I've spent the last 30 years or plus playing Star Trek games. So, and you can't select photons on a Romulan ship. Anyway,
I think it's quite important actually to distinguish the type of weapons that different species use in this show, over and above the fact that Worf laughed 6 months ago and she forgot. You know what I mean?
No way, not at all.
No.
Guinan.
And then they mentioned it was the first Galaxy-class warship, which is interesting because that's not the case in the normal timeline. The USS Galaxy was the first, yeah. There's lots of fantastic lines, let's make sure history remembers the name Enterprise, etc.
Yeah. Let's make sure history never forgets the name Enterprise.
I mean, I won't really go over the rest of the episode because it's fantastic. I kind of like the battle scenes. I like the fact that it was shown slow and it was struggling to outmaneuver the Klingons because it would. I kind of liked that, despite other people.
Well, no, that's interesting because a lot of people have picked up that they didn't like the fact that, it's trying to get in between the Enterprise C and the Birds of Prey and it just wasn't happening. But it's really interesting you picked up it's not that simple. It doesn't just go. Although couldn't the starship just go sideways if it wanted?
Yeah, also it's space, so technically mass shouldn't have a massive amount to do with it. But they're portrayed as, the smaller ships are faster. I suppose you could say they had more thrusters or etc. But yeah, I kind of liked the fact that the bigger ship was struggling because that's how I'd imagine it in real life, certainly in lore. And I suppose my final comment is, when are we ever going to get a show about the Enterprise C?
I would have loved to have seen it, but I can't see him going backwards to that.
But the bridge is fantastic, like the in-between time, it's that perfect little in-between time. You get the old monster maroons. And one last not continuity, but nice little subtle difference was the door noise. I don't know if someone's already said that.
Yeah,
I just picked up on that.
Yeah. I like that a lot. But I'd like to either see a series or movie of this timeline explaining, where it starts at the start of this episode.
I was just going to say, Lower Decks is probably your best opportunity to get any sort of reference to the sea and actually see it, rather than building a set and everything.
The ship's beautiful as well. What a beautiful
Thank
ship!
you.
What a beautiful class of ships.
And your face patches.
Quite cute, I think. It's got like a cute look to it. It's got like the saucer looks like it could have come from the O1A, and it's got the D on it, and then the hull of the ship, the main barrely bit, is more fat, rounder, and it just looks. It's got a really cute look to it as far as Enterprises go. I like it.
I like the A. I like the B. I like the D.
Hey, Patches, do you know you sounded like now?
I've got something to say about that later.
Oh, Scotty.
No, you sound like those people that you were mocking. I like the A. I like the B. I'm not a big fan of the C, but I do like the D.
I think they're really missing an opportunity here because, as Law had already established in the second season, Romulans use singularity drive.
A quantum singularity.
Yeah, so they use a black hole. That could have been the perfect catalyst for the going back in time because they alter time, and it does that in few seasons rather than the weapons. I think that would have been a nice little link. But yeah, no, I thought it was a good episode overall. And it is one of the ones that you can rewatch in TNG, which there's not many. I'll leave. Did I just say?
There's not many TNG episodes you can rewatch.
I heard you go. I was thinking this thing.
There is, but there's not as many that I get as excited for. I like this. Every time I come through it in a watch through, I'm like, oh, this is a really good episode. And there's so few of those for that. There's loads in DS9 that I go, oh, this is. When I was rewatching it with the missus, for instance, there's loads that I go. We went through TNG, and I think 2 or 3, I was like, oh, this is a really good episode. And we're only halfway through, 3/4 of the way through DS9, and I've been like, oh, this is a really good episode. And she goes, you say this about every one.
That's almost word for word what I said. If for TNG, there's a few you can come back to. DS9, there's loads I come back to, but this one is, it's almost like movie status for me. Like when you're putting a Star Trek movie on, it's not like an episode, it's the whole thing. Yeah. I get that same kind of feel from a few TNG episodes, and this is one of them. When I'm putting it on, I get that movie Trek tingle. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely know what you mean, yeah.
Well, I think the music helps with this one because one of the first notes I've got for this is when it starts, the first thing I noticed was the music, and the music really, really ramps up. And it sounds like a horror film, I think, the music to this. It's really dramatic, and it's got that kind of horror film or thriller kind of sound to it. And it kind of remains throughout this episode. But you mentioned about the sounds. I did notice it sounded different. I mean, afterwards I did Google it and I heard that they did turn certain sounds up, so it did sound different.
They said they turned all the sound effects up, didn't they? And especially the warp in the background, which we don't usually hear. They ramped that up, so it's always
exactly
like a nuclear shot.
Really, that's really cool, because I suppose in a war you wouldn't have sound deadening and stuff. You'd focus on armor. That's really interesting. I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
Well, I'm assuming the reason they did it was just so there was a noticeable difference between the two timelines, but it does make sense when you think of it that way. And now I actually didn't really. I noticed that, but I noticed it subconsciously. It's only afterwards when I googled it, I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. That is why it sounded so different. The main thing I noticed was the music. But yeah, I'm just going to quickly mention my notes because I didn't make many notes for this. Prune juice, I love that line, and I forgot it was in this episode. I'm watching it.
I totally forgot it was in this episode as well.
Exactly.
It's really interesting,
I know the line, but I could never. Well, I could tell you now which episode it was in, but I was like, "Oh, nice one!" It was like a little nugget, a little treat at the beginning. That one.
Warriors drink.
I'm not going to go in about the uniforms because people have discussed it. I actually did like it because it looks quite different to the normal Monster Maroon without the undershirts, and I didn't like the Monster Maroon versions in Flashback where they were like different coloured undershirts. I don't think they look very good. I actually preferred it this way where it's a bit stripped down. The ripple effect of the two timelines. One thing I did like is the fact that there were repercussions, because often something major will change and nothing really seems to change in the timeline. Where it would do, you'd have this big ripple effect. But the fact that Troy's not on the bridge, Worf isn't there either. So you've got two characters who are normally there who aren't there, and you've got Tasha Yar who wasn't there, is there. I was pleased that there were some significant differences because of that timeline change. Speaking of the timeline, it did seem a bit easy to convince Picard, and I know this is because this is contained in like a 40-minute episode or whatever. But imagine if in normal TNG season 3, somebody turns around and says, "I don't think this timeline's right." You can't imagine them turning around and saying, "Oh yeah, you're right. Let's abandon all this and let's blow the ship." Exactly, yeah. So it did seem a bit easy, but I suppose you are restricted in terms of time constraints there.
In Picard's defense, I think the fact that the Enterprise sees right there and it's straight out of a time warp.
That is true. Yeah.
That's quite compelling evidence that something might be wrong here.
I'll give you that. That is a fair point. And he does say that he does trust Guinan. So he's got like a special, level of trust there with her.
You have only your trust in me to help you decide to do it.
I do like Yar's relationship with that other fella. I can't remember his name now. Richard.
Lieutenant Castillo.
That's him, yeah. I really like that, and I really bought into that. And I remember seeing it first time round and thinking that it did feel it didn't feel too forced. Their interactions.
That was really good, yeah.
I hated him. Hated him.
Jealous. They were jealous. Also, this is a really gory episode. When Garrett dies, she gets like a metal spike in her head. And then when Riker dies, his throat's slashed by a piece of metal or something. Because you said earlier on somebody said about Picard and Riker have got a bit of a touchy relationship in this. Picard. And I'm like, because Picard at one stage slashes his throat. That's what it looked like. But story back. But that's it. That's all my notes.
We do see a bit of Picard like vaulting over the wooden bridge to get to the tactical station as well. It's a bit physical. So in amongst the shouting and the stressed out Picard, you get a bit of physical in there as well.
Yeah.
Which is, again, you don't see that from the Picard we know much at all.
No.
So
the Picard we know, he's not going to start vaulting over stuff. And
he'd just call another officer.
I love this episode very much. It's my 5 TNG episodes. I think Dennis Crosby's performance is really, really, really good. It really touches me as well. I really like Popper at the end. And the beginning, obviously, John already mentioned it. The war for Guinan City. Very juice, mostly the prune juice, obviously. Warriors drink. I love that scene as well. And the whole story of the being in the wrong time. And I like Captain Garrett as well. I think she's a brilliant captain. I like her as well. Really good officer. Really good chemistry with Tasha Yar. Sorry, JP. I know. Really, really, really good chemistry. And the whole story where Tasha goes back and everything, and it's a definite death. But the way they go for it, believing that they have to do it, I think it's brilliant the way they do it at the end. That even though they're going to die, they're all up for it. So we've got to do this for history, And obviously, Picard's words let history never forget the name Enterprise. I love that line. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Really thoroughly enjoyed it. So it's 9 out of 10 for me. I loved it.
Brilliant.
I felt like I watched this episode twice. The first time was to try and explain to Dee that they weren't all on the Enterprise C and they were still on the D. That took about 45 minutes to explain. But I really enjoyed this episode. Everything about it, from the wibbly wobbly time change to when they start calling everything CIC and meeting in the war room and thing. I really enjoy it. I like the subtle changes in the uniforms. I love the ambassador class patches. So
yeah,
in your face. Because you needed that from the Excelsior to the Galaxy class. You needed.
Oh yeah, you need. It's shit. So
it's not shit.
Yeah, it's shit. It really is.
There's nothing really else I can touch on apart from this is one of the reasons there was that big argument about what size is a bird of prey.
Yeah.
Now there's different classes of bird of prey.
Yeah,
there's a lot of different classes.
Because this one's the large version of the bird of prey.
The Cavort.
Yeah, the Cavort class.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all I'm really going to say about this. I really enjoy it. I
know there's budget constraints, but someone in the Enterprise C would have looked at a bird of prey and gone, "Oh, that's a bird of prey." Do you know what I mean? Kirk would have saw a bird of prey and go, "Oh, it's a bird of prey." Yeah. They just don't change for hundreds of years. It's cheap.
Don't change it if it's not broke.
Yeah, if it's a good design, use it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I've got to say. I can't really say anything else that hasn't been said, but I really do enjoy this episode. I always have. It's one of them little gems in TNG that I always look forward to watching. Yeah.
Do you think Denise Crosby sort of went to acting school and then came back? Because it certainly seems that way.
Yeah, I
think it's just because, like Patrick said earlier, when you look at the first season, you can't say any of them act well.
No, they don't.
And she never had the chance to just progress. That's all.
Yeah, if Denise Crosby had stayed and matured in that role with the rest of the cast, she'd have been a powerful character and every bit as believable and rounded and polished as everyone else. And as Dan said, and Brush, I think there's a lot to do with the writing and the depth of stuff that she has to say in this and how she communicates with other people. It's not just cheesy one-liners or any of that tosh. Do you know what I mean?
For season one, Tasha Yar appears quite a lot, actually, compared to other characters.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, but she don't have any really good stories.
Well, like I said, nobody did. The stories weren't very good. You know, I didn't like.
I think she come a long way from Playboy to this. I think.
What did you reckon, Dee? Did you like it then?
It turns out, for 30 odd years, I've been watching the wrong programme. Because when he was trying to explain the plot to me, I was going, "That's not what happens in this episode." And he was like, "What do you think happened?" So when I gave him my version of the events, he went, "I'd like to see that, but that's not what happens in this." So
Dee, actually, so before you go on with your notes, what do you think happened? Because I want to hear these episodes. This sounds great.
No, 45 minutes it took me.
Well,
come on, let's Mandela effect it. What actually happened before the timeline changed?
Well, I didn't even know the timeline had changed.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was just. That's what I mean. I thought it was just at the same time, but she was from the other ship and she came over to the D, and then only Guinan didn't recognise her, and I was confused about that. I was very confused all the way through it, to be honest with you. And only Guinan recognised her, and I didn't understand that. I couldn't understand why they were all pretending she's still there. And I thought it was a Mirror Universe episode for about 30 odd years.
Did you enjoy your version?
If you only watched it once when you were like 12, that's fine. But if you've watched it several times over 30 years.
You had your very own alternate timeline experience there, Dee. It's very interesting.
Yeah. I want to know if Steve liked this episode, because technically it is a time travel episode, and he hates time travel episodes.
Is it a time travel episode?
Travels through
No, it's
time.
not.
I mean, the ship
It's not really.
It travels through time.
No,
Time travel episode.
yeah, but not really. It travels through an anomaly, and then we
So
end
Steve
up with-
liked it then. This is his way of saying I liked it, but it's not a time travel episode.
Shut up, John Joe. Nobody asked you. Right.
So can we just clear this up? Is this an alternate universe
No,
episode, or is it a time travel universe, or is it a time travel into an alternate universe?
Yeah.
No, it's Prime Universe, but an alternate timeline. There you go.
I don't know if this is Prime Universe. Is this Prime Universe?
Yeah, it's Prime Universe. It's definitely Prime Universe.
So the Enterprise warship it's not Prime Universe. That's alternate universe.
It's just based on that
Enterprise C was destroyed.
What have you started, Patches?
And this.
Come on, I need to go at 9. and there's an hour of traction in that conversation.
Yeah, it was good. What I really liked about it was a lot of what everybody's already waffled on about.
Grill them, bacon, fry them, eat them. Fried potato waffles, you're waffly versatile.
All the
waffle.
Oh, it's all waffle. That's what we do. We spend 2.5 hours waffling every night, don't we? Every Thursday night.
Load of old bollocks. That's what it is.
What does it really change? Come on, man.
That's all very well, but what does it mean?
Yeah, anyway, like I said, I liked all the announcement that were going over the comm. I like the fact that they explained the fact that the TKLs were rations, and that because replicators, which are normally so abundant, take up a lot of power, so they were all on minimum. And it's just slight changes like that really sort of painted the alternate universe.
Food replicators are on minimum power, so everything else is diverted to the defensive systems.
I also thought it was interesting the fact that a lot of the crew weren't aware of just how dire the situation was with the whole war. When he says to her at one side, do you know what, we ain't winning this. 6 months from now, it's all over.
Within 6 months, we may have no choice but to surrender.
Sort of would have liked to see Picard punch Riker just for the sheer hell of it.
He slashed his throat.
I liked it when Garrett died and she just had that sheet of metal in her head. I thought that was brilliant. Love that.
That's excellent cosplay opportunity, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Emma, that's one for you.
Really? Do you know what it is? I struggled with the whole Guinan saying something's not right, and the fact that I know this plays on Picard's relationship with her and stuff like that, but I thought she's not part of Starfleet. So with the removal of all of the civilians, why is she still there?
Yeah.
That didn't make much sense to me, because it was a ship full of troops. Why chuck a civilian in a situation like that? But then equally, obviously she was integral. But then
I suppose she's the nearest thing you've got to a counselor on ship, I suppose. Bartender stroke counselor. So maybe she'd serve that kind of role.
Yeah, but then, unless I'm mistaken, in the armed forces, you don't have a civilian bartender. You don't necessarily have a civilian, not in a war situation, I wouldn't imagine. The other thing with the whole Guinan and Picard thing, what captain in charge of 1,000 troops would take the word of a civilian over, the military chain of command? Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said to Dan, there's a strong body of evidence there with this shit coming through this thing. Something's definitely not right, because that's real and that's tangible. And if you've lost the war and you've anyway, anything's worth a try. So,
I think that's the key, isn't it? That's got to be the key. I don't think he'd have done it had they been, winning the war or being close to winning it. But because he knew they were, they were knackered anyway. Then
yeah, that's true. I never thought. To be honest, I never thought of that. When I said it was a bit easily convinced, yeah, you're right. The sea appeared, which is a massive thing, right?
Yeah.
It came from the past. And the truth is, they're all just tired of war and they don't see themselves winning. So like, well, fuck it. Well, what have we got to lose? You know what I mean? It's like, let's just do it.
And the whole Tasha Yar thing and the sealer thing, right? I don't know why. It never clicked in my head how that whole thing come about. Is it because she went back in time that the whole sealer thing? It is. Right, I wasn't entirely sure.
Do you know what? I didn't realise either. It's only now people are looking at it and like, oh yeah, it makes sense now. You're right.
It's one of my favourite points about the fact that the continuity is carried over.
I like the effect of when the universe, the timeline actually changes.
The shimmer.
The shimmer. That was brilliant. I like and the fact that they added extra shit to the bridge. The console just to the right. Rocks, the extra console to the right, and whatnot. But that's pretty much all I've got on it. I liked it. It's a good episode.
Do you know, I've literally just watched it. Watched it, and I can't believe it's season 3, and I don't think I've ever seen it before. I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I'm going to see something that I remember. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I don't remember any of this. Now, you know that I'm going to come out with some crap about aesthetically superficial stuff and everything, because that's just what I do. I'm not interested in like the photon torpedoes and the ships and the war and everything now. I watched no end. I watched it and I goes, oh, it's Shooter McGavin from Happy Gilmore.
Chris said the same thing.
Oh, when he was in Grease 2 as well. Oh, and he was in that rom-com where Robert Downey Jr. comes back as him because he died. And Adam's just sitting there like, yeah, okay. All right, Emma.
There's two very different perspectives there, isn't it? I'm like, those aren't the right type of torpedoes. And in the real world, Emma's there like...
Yeah. And then I thought, oh, I was going to Adam. Oh, look at him in his monster maroon. Oh, doesn't he look? He looks quite sexy in that. I'll never look at Shooter McGavin the same again. But no, I really enjoyed it. I've got a feeling that maybe that was made to give Tasha Yar the send-off that she deserved, because I know that when she died, there was a lot of complaints. It was like, what the hell? Where did that come from? That was a really shit death. So I feel like part of it was about giving her the send-off. And I've got Cleveland said, I said, I wouldn't come back if I was her. If I was Denise Crosby, I'd say F off. I ain't doing it. You killed me off. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons she thought, yeah, man, I want the send-off that I deserve. So, no, I like that. I thought it was really good how they put that in there. I don't know how many of you are big Voyager fans. I love Voyager.
I like Voyager.
I don't know. I presume you all know about that. It wasn't originally Kate Mulgrew who was cast as Captain James.
Yeah, it was the French thing, wasn't it?
They actually filmed a lot of the pilot episode with a French actress.
Yeah.
So I'm watching yesterday's Enterprise and I'm looking at that Enterprise sea captain and I'm thinking, did they kind of originally try and style the original captain from Voyager on her? Because I see a lot of similarities. The hair, and she was really softly spoken. And I thought, was that kind of what they originally went for?
Yeah, did they dig up Rachel Garrett in the archives and thought, that'd be a good lead captain for the new Voyager show?
Yeah, but obviously like, she's dead and in an alternate timeline or whatever. So I think maybe that was what they were looking for originally.
Yeah.
But obviously the actress, I think she was like, oh no, I can't commit to all these seasons.
She was a film actress and she just she couldn't deal with the production, like 14 hour days.
And if you actually watch the scenes that are on YouTube,
they're awful.
Really bad.
Interested at
You can't hear her at all.
The Cardassians gave us the last known heading of the Maquis ship.
And she's just going, go on then, for whatever, for the photon.
She may as well be holding the script in front of her. Yeah. I mean, there's no life to it at all.
Yeah. And I kept looking at her and thinking she reminds me of Sigourney Weaver when I'm watching.
Someone else said that. It might have been before you joined.
Was it Dinah in Ghostbusters and in the first Alien stuff? Yeah, and I thought, she really
In Alien 2 with that short bob hair, she definitely has that Sigourney Weaver look. Totally. What are you laughing at now?
Not like you to know that, Patches.
Aliens, Alien 2.
I'm just looking. I had to take notes on this. The only other thing I've got really is because obviously I am very superficial. I just like romance and silly stories and Fanny Gallops and stuff. So the only other thing I would say was that Guinan. Now I'm not a fan of Guinan. I think she's a fantastic actress, but I think the part of Guinan was crap. I don't think it showed her actress skills, and I love Ghost and I love Sister Act, and I just thought Guinan was really wishy-washy and a bit boring. But anyway, aside from that, they missed an opportunity when Tasha asks her and she goes, what is it? What's wrong? She should have gone, Tasha, you're in danger, girl, or something like that. I was wishing for her to just come out with something really funny. And
you know what would have been really good is if when Tasha said that to Guinan, that a bunch of the crew stood up behind them and started clicking their fingers and swaying their hips, ready to break out into a Sister Act song.
Yeah. And she goes, "Oh, give me some of that deep shoulder action."
Hey, let me hear, sing.
Well, we all kind of liked Subspace Rhapsody, so maybe there was misunderstanding.
No, we didn't all kind of
We
like
didn't
that.
all. I'd like to point out that was not everybody.
All right, sorry. Sorry, go ahead, Emma, what were you saying?
I liked Subspace Rhapsody. I think a Sister Act Next Gen episode, that would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
And she could have tapped her feet and she could have gone, Data, check your batteries.
And I think the way they set up the beginning was so clever. There was so much to set up, but they've done it in such a clever way that it didn't really need explanation, except for some people do. That shimmer as well. So everyone has mentioned the shimmer, and interestingly, the shimmer effect was put in post-production. This episode was really rushed. Like really rushed, because they had to bring the production forward to meet with Denise Crosby and Whoopi Goldberg's schedules. So they had to write this episode in 3 days. They really had to push it through to the point that all the cast and crew thought, this is not going to work. This is one of those that we've just slapped together really quickly, and they didn't believe it was going to work. They even give it, if you look at the credits, there's 4 writing credits, which the Guild of Writers do not allow more than 3, and they had to ask special permission to get a 4th added. But there was more than 4 writers. Michael Pilar chose to take his name off it so somebody else could get that credit. So it was like a super rush production. That shimmer effect was put in. When they saw it, whoever was in charge and had the final say, they went, no, we don't want that, thank you. But there was no time to get it taken out again. So it's in the episode, and I wonder why. Like I mentioned, it's in the beginning, but not at the end. And I wonder if that's the reason, because whoever was in charge didn't actually want that shimmer effect. But I think it makes such a difference because it points out something is changing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, very cleverly, you can see it happening. Picard is right in front of you, and then he turns like that so that you can see who's behind him. And it is Worf. And then the exact same happens when the shimmer happens, and it's Tasha Yar. So I think it's super clever.
Yeah.
What are their sensor readings?
And really sets up the whole episode without having to go through such an explanation that would have taken so much time. Everyone's mentioned uniforms, and I agree with most of what you've said. I did notice. Did you notice the lower? So the people on the bridge had the season 3 uniforms. Did you notice that they had
in the transporter room?
Yeah, they had the season 1 and 2 episodes for what they classed then as the lower
decks.
Yeah. And they also had the 2, the silver thing that came over their shoulder, whereas the main crew didn't have that. So it was differences. There. You could see as well how busy it was. They brought on the fact it was a military warship really well, like everyone's mentioned, just from the change of bridge set and the lighting, and also the fact that everywhere you went in corridors in 10-4, it was like jam-packed full of people, which was really noticeable. Somebody mentioned TKL, so the ration packs, and I wasn't going to mention it because it's really petty, but I will come back to it then. So in the bar, shut your face. In the bar, Guinan is saying to Tasha, "Oh, okay, Tasha, what do you want? Anything?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, okay." And she asks for TKL, and then they have a little chat, like her and the man Castillo have a chat, and then they get called to the bridge, so they walk out, and then she looks at Guinan, and Guinan's at the table over there, and I'm like, "You're supposed to be getting her something. Like you're not doing your job. She's just asked you for a ration pack, and you're over there clearing the table." Sorry.
I'm not serving you. You're dead.
At one point, they say there's Klingons on the starboard bow.
I didn't hear that.
Really?
I missed that.
I'm like,
I missed that.
One Klingon bird of prey off the starboard bow.
I totally missed it.
Brilliant.
Riker had a right stick up his arse in this episode, didn't he? But again, it was interesting because they were bringing on the characters in that fashion. So he was like more challenging to Picard than we ever see him.
With all due respect, sir.
Yeah. And really interesting how Picard is really challenging back to him.
Stand by transporter rooms.
Understood.
Relay that order, Doctor.
Really snappy, isn't he?
But it was good. I thought that was really good. It's like, look, this is a brief thing. You're not here to discuss it. I'm telling you what's going to happen. I'll go do it, thank you. And I thought that was really good.
Jellicoe would have been proud.
Absolutely, yeah.
Get it done. Get it done. Get it done.
I thought Troy looked really nice in the first and last scenes on the bridge. But again, it was important that they removed her character from the episode because that fit in with it. So there was a mistake in the last scene, very last scene. Did anyone spot it? Geordie. In the last scene, Geordie is still wearing the alternate uniform. He's still got that big black cuff on it.
Oh, I didn't notice.
Yeah.
I our beady eyes.
Yeah, right. Otherwise, the episode is amazing, like everyone said. So what I'll do now is go more into like production of it. So I like to look at what was originally the original story pitched for this. Is really interesting. So it was to include Vulcans and the Guardian of Forever.
Oh.
And it was going to be that the Vulcan science team with Surak. Surak was the first Vulcan, that brought on the logical part.
The logic,
so,
yeah.
So that science team are doing something with the Guardian of the Galaxy, Guardian of Forever.
Guardian of Forever.
And Surak gets killed. And so the timeline changes dramatically to the point that the Romulans never get logical. They join the Romulans. They've already defeated the whole of the... they join the Romulans. They've already defeated the whole of the Klingon Empire and are now at war with the Federation. And the only way they can get this timeline back in this instance is Sarek is in the episode. And so they were going to use Sarek as the one who says, fine, I'll go back in time. I'll take the place of Surak.
Yeah.
So he was just going to go and pretend he was Surak so that the Vulcans could carry on like they should have. And that would have reverted the timeline back. So I thought that was quite interesting. But then when they pitched it, Michael Pilar was a bit, you're using gimmicks from TOS and we're really trying to get away from that. We want TNG to be its own thing. So let's not do that, please.
Yeah.
Christopher McDonald played Lieutenant Castillo. He was originally considered for the Riker's role. He was in the interviews, what do you call them?
Auditions.
Audition. Trisha O'Neill, who plays Captain Garrett, also appeared as... I was surprised because you didn't recognise her, and it's one of my favourite episodes. Do you remember the episode TNG Suspicions? It's the Dr. Crusher episode where there's scientists on board. There's a Klingon scientist and 2 other race scientists. And they're trying to do this warp bubble that allows them to go into the sun.
Is that the one with Ferengi as well?
Yes, the Ferengi scientist, I love that episode. It's really good. For Dr. Crusher, I think it's her best episode ever because she don't get a lot to do usually. And she plays, Trisha O'Neill plays the Klingon in that episode. So she's in a Deep Space Nine episode and plays one of the Obsidian Order Cardassians.
Yeah.
So again, you don't notice her because she's so made up. We see in this episode, again Crewman Martinez. Crewman Martinez is played by Michael Braveheart, and he appears in 84 episodes of The Next Generation, but is never given really credit because he's just this one character. I was looking up his profile and I was thinking, we should do something special for Michael Braveheart, but unfortunately he died a while ago. But interesting, he's in 84 episodes and carries on into First Contact, Insurrection, and then the odd episode of the others. Season 3. So it's season 3. Michael Pilar started in season 3, and do you all know that he opened up a submission policy for scripts?
Yes.
So he allowed people to just write scripts. This is the first ever show ever to do that. So that was interesting because it's also the first franchise show. So it's interesting that it's always been kind of trying to push the boundaries. And so this came from one of those scripts that was sent in, the basic story that they liked. It was lots of tweaking needed, and like he had other things in there that they took out. But so they actually paid him for a story so that they could then go and kind of rewrite it themselves. So the Enterprise C. That design was actually one that was rejected for the Enterprise D. And so when this episode came about, I can understand why it was not accepted for the D because it was too similar to the A. So I can see why the D is. But then when they came up with this episode and wanted to see, they were like, oh, we've got the exact ship for that because we already created it. So they went back to those designs. As this was being made, everyone, I already mentioned it was going to be an awful episode. But since the cast and crew, even the cast say this is one of our favourite episodes. Because it turned out that good. You mentioned the sound, Dan, and so it actually won an Emmy for Outstanding Sound Editing.
Oh, right. Nice one.
The battle scene towards the end was due to be a lot bigger. So as well as seeing Riker die, we were supposed to see Data electrocuted, and we were supposed to see Wesley Crusher blown up.
Chris would have liked that,
So disappointed.
I'm not a fan of Gordon. I'm quite vocal about it.
You're not going to mention the boobs, are you?
What?
That's all right. Continue then. Continue. Don't worry.
I mean, we need to go back to that in a minute, Dan.
Dinah's boobs.
What
was that? No, I won't put this in the edit. It seems a bit weird. I just like doing a double take. I was like, what?
I see when I say ridiculous stuff that ends in the edit, Dan.
Well, I get shot down in fucking flames every episode, but all of your inappropriate shit seems to just escape the cut.
It's the power of the editor.
Exactly. Yeah, I've got godlike powers when I'm at my keyboard.
He's essentially Q.
Yeah.
Yeah.